at 7:33 p.m. Everyone who can, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for a moment of silent prayer or contemplation as your conscience finds appropriate. Thank you. Please be seated. I have to dismiss all these dialog boxes. So, okay. So next item on the agenda is, of course, approval of the agenda. Are any changes required to the agenda? As I understand, I got a message from the town manager that, where is it? New business item 1, the neighborhood safety camera system is not ready for action this evening, so I'd like to remove that. Are there any other changes? And are there any conflicts of interest that any council members have for items on the agenda this evening? Hearing none, may I please have a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
Motion to approve the agenda as is.
As amended.
Sorry. Seconded.
Is there any discussion? Are there any public comments? Hearing none, I'll do a roll call vote. Councilmember Smith has not yet arrived. Councilmember Foe.
Aye.
Councilmember Lingua has not yet arrived, or is he iPad? No, iPad disappeared, so we will assume that he has not yet arrived. Councilmember Sadiq.
Aye.
Councilmember Mejia, as I said, will not be joining us because she is in urgent care with a child, with her children. And Councilmember Mayers.
Aye.
And I abstain. The motion passes 3-0. I have to mark up the agenda or I will lose track of where we are this evening. Okay, that brings us to presentations. And the first one is a proclamation and observation of Small Business Saturday. And the Spanish version of this has a lot of numbers in it, so it's going to be a little bit challenging. So I hope you have some patience with me there. Proclamation. Whereas the town of Riverdale Park celebrates local small businesses and the contributions that they make to our local economy and community. And whereas, according to the United States Small Business Administration, there are 32.5 million small businesses in the United States. They represent 99.7% of all firms with paid employees. Small businesses are responsible for 62% of net new jobs created since 1995. And small businesses employ 46.8% of the employees in the private sector in the United States. And whereas 79% of consumers understand the importance of supporting the small businesses in their community on Small Business Saturday, 70% report the day makes them want to encourage others to shop small, independently owned retailers, and 66% report that the day makes them want to shop small all year long. And whereas 58% of shoppers reported they shopped online with a small business, and 54% reported they dined or ordered takeout from a small restaurant, bar, or cafe on Small Business Saturday in 2021. And whereas the town of Riverdale Park supports local businesses that create jobs, boost our local economy, and preserve our communities, and whereas advocacy groups, as well as public and private organizations across the country, have endorsed the Saturday after Thanksgiving as Small Business Saturday. Now, therefore, I, Alan K. Thompson, Mayor of the town of Riverdale Park, Maryland, do hereby proclaim November 26, 2022 as Small Business Saturday, and urge the residents of our community and communities across the country to support small businesses and merchants on Small Business Saturday and throughout the year. Y ahora en español, proclamación. Considerando que la ciudad de Riverdale Park celebra las pequeñas empresas locales y las contribuciones que hacen a nuestra economía local y la comunidad, y considerando que según la Administración de Pequeñas Empresas de los Estados Unidos, hay 32,5 millones de pequeñas empresas en los Estados Unidos. Las pequeñas empresas representan el 99,7% de las empresas con empleados remunerados. Las pequeñas empresas son responsables de 62% de los nuevos puestos de trabajo en esos creados desde 1995 y 5. Y las pequeñas empresas emplean al 46,8% de los empleados del sector privado en los Estados Unidos. Y considerando que el 79% de los consumidores entienden la importancia de apoyar a las pequeñas empresas de su comunidad en el Small Business Saturday, el 60% informa que el día les hace querer animar a otros a comprar en los pequeños comercios independientes, y el 66% informa que el día les hace querer comprar en los pequeños comercios durante todo el año. Y considerando que el 58% de los compradores informan que compraron en línea con una pequeña empresa, y el 54% informaron que cenaron o pidieron comida para llevar de un pequeño restaurante, bar o cafetería en el sábado del pequeño comercio en 2021. Y considerando que la ciudad de Riverdale Park apoyó las empresas locales que crean puestos de trabajo, impulsan nuestra economía local y preservan nuestras comunidades, y considerando que los grupos de defensa, así como las organizaciones públicas y privadas en todo el país han respaldado el sábado después de Acción de Gracias como Por lo tanto, yo, Alan K. Thompson, alcalde de la ciudad de Riverdale Park, Maryland, proclamó el 27 de noviembre de 2022 como sábado de la pequeña empresa, e instar a los residentes de nuestra comunidad y las comunidades de todo el país a que apoyen a las pequeñas empresas y a los comerciantes al sábado de pequeño comercio y durante todo el año. Muchas gracias. I will move along to Municipal Government Works proclamation. And just to spice things up, I will start with the Spanish version there. El alcalde y el consejo de la ciudad de Riverdale Park proclaman noviembre ser mes de trabajos de gobierno municipal. Mientras que la ciudad de Riverdale Park fue incorporado en el 1920, y mientras que Maryland es el hogar de 157 otros municipios, y considerando que el gobierno municipal representa el nivel más sensible del gobierno, permitiendo que los ciudadanos tengan acceso directo a los electos, y considerando que es un esfuerzo para educar a los ciudadanos sobre el gobierno municipal y la importancia de su participación, la ciudad de Riverdale Park está orgulloso de promover la conciencia del gobierno municipal. Y mientras que los municipios han mejorado la calidad de vida de sus respectivos residentes, manteniendo sitios y estructuras naturales y históricas, y ayudando a hacer de Maryland un lugar bueno de vivir, trabajar, jugar y explorar. Por lo tanto, se ha proclamado que el alcalde y el consejo de la ciudad de Riverdale Park, por unirse a la Liga Municipal de Maryland, en declarar noviembre para ser mes de obras gobierno municipal en la ciudad de Riverdale Park. And in English, the mayor and council of the town of Riverdale Park proclaim November to be Municipal Government Works Month. Whereas the town of Riverdale Park was incorporated in 1920, and whereas Maryland is home to 157 other municipalities, And whereas municipal government represents the most responsive level of government, allowing citizens to have direct access to elected officials. And whereas in an effort to educate citizens about municipal government and the importance of their participation, the town of Riverdale Park is proud to promote municipal government awareness. And whereas municipalities have enhanced the quality of life for their respective residents, maintaining natural and historic sites and structures, and helping to make Maryland a great place to live, work, play, and explore. Therefore, be it proclaimed that the mayor and council of the town of Riverdale Park hereby join the Maryland Municipal League in declaring November to be Municipal Government Works Month in Riverdale Park. Thank you very much. And I think that certainly everyone on the virtual dais understands that we are easily accessible to our citizens. I certainly am contacted directly, and I think it's great. It's great to get that feedback from our residents. Okay, next presentation is the Walk, Bike, Drive Safety Initiative updates.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the council and the community. I just want to take a moment before I hand this off to staff to stress the importance of this initiative and the fact that we all play a role in making Riverdale Park safer. As we engage and transverse through the town, whether on foot or on bicycle or other micro-mobility device, or by driving. The mayor and council have demonstrated the town's commitment to this initiative dating back to 2019, January of 2019, when we had a kickoff meeting for this, inviting the community in, but also in funding really important CIP projects, having staff go out and find new ways to address ongoing issues, and in mayor and council support for a new position. And that position is the community safety program manager. And that's new in this budget year. And so we have with us this evening Marissa Davis, who leads in that office. And she's going to lead us in this presentation tonight. So we're glad she's here. And I think it's a very important initiative. It's probably one of the most significant things that the town is working on and trying to improve. And with that, Marissa?
Yes, sir. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. I'm here to talk to you about the Walk, Bike, Drive initiative. Between April 1st and October 1st, we've had 437 accidents. 132 of them were hit and run accidents. We've also had 5 accidents where pedestrians were struck by vehicles. During that same time frame, we've issued almost 26,000 speed camera citations. 27 people were arrested for driving while intoxicated. Our town has 2 schools that we've worked with and that we're partnering with, Riverdale Elementary School, which the students there walk to school, 629 students there. We have 690 students walk to that school at College Park Academy. We have 319 households that have people there with disabilities. 773 residents are over the age of 65, and we have 200 households without vehicles. So we have a lot of pedestrian traffic. The main goal of the Walk, Bike, Drive initiative is to make sure that we have a safe place for everyone to be able to move, be it by foot, bicycle, car, bus, however people get around, we want them to be safe. So we've identified what's best for our town, how we can make this happen. And we've come up with what we like to call our 4 E's. And our 4 E's are everyone, chipping in throughout the town with education, environment, engineering, and enforcement. The educational part, which we're working on and we're doing daily, um, is we've conducted National Night Out, where we talk to families, about these very same things, where we passed out bike helmets, lights, reflective bands, lights for the bicycles, showed kids how to properly wear a helmet, and explain to the parents why wearing a helmet is important. Um, we've also done drug awareness assemblies with Riverdale Elementary School. We've participated in Walk Bike to School Day, Back to School Day. We have a great partnership with College Park Academy that I'm really excited about, where we're going to begin teaching driver safety education to the young people who are getting out here on the road. Um, we're also going to do a drug awareness assembly there with them as well. We have some plans to do some educational information at the farmers market as well. We're also going to keep, pushing, you know, safety through the crier, social media platforms. Um, we've identified, some awareness months, if you will, that we really want to make sure that we focus on through those social media platforms, about especially distractive driving, is a big one that we definitely need to focus on. Also, pedestrian safety, traffic safety, biking to work. Um, we're also starting December 10th, our community conversations. Um, One of the things that we also are looking at is our environment. How can we improve the environment within the town of Riverdale to help make all of these things flow, where everyone is sharing the road safely and being able to walk safely, bike safely. So we're looking at, different infrastructures. Um, how can we improve the roads or the sidewalks? Do we need to put in new sidewalks where there may not be sidewalks? Um, we have, a good number of people who have disabilities. Do we need to install curb ramps, near their homes to make sure that they're able to move safely? Um, we're looking at, improving signage, road markings. Also, if while we're out driving around our town, looking for different road hazards, ways to improve the infrastructure. I think we've all been communicating really well with things that we've seen that maybe we can improve. And so these are things that we've been looking at doing. There are a number of projects that we are already currently working on. In this fiscal year, they've already started pavement repairs, doing traffic calming improvements, especially around Riverdale Park Station, improving the crosswalks. We're purchasing installing 30 flashing stop signs, 25 flashing pedestrian crossing signs, which are a good visual marker. Even if you're driving further down the road, you can see these so you know something is coming up, which would caution a driver or even a cyclist or to, pay attention to what's going on there. These are things that, can just give that visibility, to help, people pay a little bit better attention. Working on a street light project on 54th Avenue. Again, sidewalk installation, There's going to be new bus shelters. That's what we're looking, to do. And we're still looking at the security cameras as well. One of the goals during the engineering is to design roadways, spaces, so people are protected no matter what. And it's mainly, we're focusing like on the roads, again, with, hazards. But we do have, different, we do have different proposals that we'd like to look at. The trolley trail parking lot redesign project we're looking at that to improve the design and circulation of the safety of multi-travel modes throughout the town center. We're also looking at getting, community feedback for that and trying to figure out what will be the best design for that. Looking at the re-engineering of Lafayette Street in alignment to achieve safer circular pattern, because it can get a little confusing in that area about which way to go between your buses and your cars that go through that area. So we're just trying to look at what will be a better way for that. Looking at a permanent location for the farmers market and maybe a larger space for other different community events that we will eventually like to have. And once we start doing, even more community events. We're looking at also doing raised crosswalks. There have been several areas that we have identified that the need for raised crosswalks at the intersections that have high pedestrian travel and issues with, people stopping at stop signs. Maybe that will definitely help. We're looking at Taylor Road, right off East West Highway, Riverdale Road, Queensberry Road. With the curb ramps, there are a number of intersections within the town that currently do not have curb ramps. We're working on trying to figure out exactly where these areas are so we can, get a list started and figure out, okay, where can we start from there. The enforcement component of the walk, bike, drive is to discourage negative behaviors, be it driving, with the speeding. Speed is a very serious problem. The aggressive driving, the impaired driving, distracted driving. I think it would also help cut down on a lot of the noise that we're seeing out here. But maintaining the safe speeds will absolutely reduce the fatalities, serious injuries, to people, as well as property damage, to different areas throughout the town. We're exploring the possibility of going from moving the town from the school zone to the residential zone, which would expand the ability to use automated speed enforcement 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We are also seeking to find a vendor to implement automated red light cameras. Currently, outside of the normal patrol activities day to day that we're conducting, We have a seatbelt safety grant with DUI enforcement that specifically targets the, the aggressive driving, the impaired driving, pedestrian enforcement, which is essentially, like jaywalking, and seatbelt enforcement. So right now we're just trying to look at different ways that we can, we can go about getting all of these items done. The town has already worked very, very hard to achieve a lot of, the things that we're doing. We could just do more. I truly believe we could do more. If you look at the numbers of just the accidents alone, I feel that we definitely can be more, and we have talked about that. But we definitely are looking to improve, and that is where we are now. So we're coming to you all to look to see if you guys have ideas and ways, and ultimately give us the go ahead to start pushing our town forward to work on these projects and get them done to keep everyone here safe.
Marissa, I want to thank you for walking us through that and for leading in this endeavor. Mr. Mayor and Council, I want to share just a few additional thoughts. It's one of those things where oftentimes when we think of safety in the roadways and in communities, the focus goes primarily to motor vehicles. But I mentioned in my opening comments, it's really all of us. It's making sure if you're walking and you're approaching a crosswalk, you actually stop and you look both ways and before you step out in the street. We have a video, it flashed up there for a second. Ryan, you can go ahead and play that video. This just happened the other day. If you look to the right, you'll see a bicycle coming down and a bicyclist struck in that intersection. And Ryan, that's on a loop, so I think you can go to minimize it or stop it. But the point in sharing this is that it takes all of us. In this case, you had a bicyclist enter the roadway without stopping, and that the bicyclist should have stopped. And we all need to be safe. And so this safety program is so much more than the motor vehicle, but it's bicyclist, it's every mode of transportation. Again, I believe that the town has done a lot and there's a lot to do. So in the memo is a recommendation that the mayor and council consider putting some of the currently undesignated ARPA funds towards various projects. And so we have the $850,000 from the state for the redesign of the trolley trail in town center. That's really significant. But we also have that private development that's going to be happening, likely happening, I should say, in the town center area. That's going to bring additional traffic. And we have the long talked about project of redesigning the intersections of Lafayette and Natoli and Queensbury. And we're going to be realigning Maryland and Rhode Island, just the other side of the tracks. But the staff team is looking at getting more automated or flashing stop signs and more raised crosswalks. and doing everything we can to modify, the town, to modify the environment and to modify behavior. I was surprised to learn that we had 5 pedestrians struck in a 6-month time period. And so with that, well, I'll be remiss if I don't mention this. The entire staff team is behind this, and Ivy Lewis is our point person on all public projects, and she's played a very intricate role throughout this and will continue. And Jessica Barnes and Gentry and Paul and Rosa and Ryan and all of our teammates, and trying to put forward enhancements for our residents and our businesses and our visitors. So with that, the staff team is here, Mr. Mayor, to listen to any reactions and input that the mayor and council have and the community, as well as to respond to any questions the best we can.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Ms. Davis. I'm going to allow the council to ask questions, and Councilmember Foe had his hand up but dropped it, and so Councilmember Siddiq went ahead of him in line. So we'll go with Councilmember Siddiq first.
Thank you. Just to clarify, the bicyclist was at fault in that video?
I'll defer to Marissa or Rosa.
Yes, the
Marissa, go ahead.
cyclist, the cyclist was at fault. He is still obligated to yield to the traffic in the street.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, could I jump in on that?
Sure.
Sorry for being late, everybody. I'm not sure that's the case. I would literally look this up just before the meeting in the Maryland traffic code. When riding on a sidewalk or a bike path, a bicyclist may ride in a crosswalk to continue their route. Motorists are required to yield right of way to a bicyclist operating lawfully in a crosswalk. Drivers must look for bicycles coming from both directions. I was also on location there just a few minutes after this happened, and was told that the driver admitted fault and said that they did not look both ways. So I don't think it's the case that the cyclist was at fault here.
Well, perhaps we should do some more research and get an answer for that. If Councilmember Foe, if you can hold off for a second, I'll just say that for several years, when I lived in Boston, was going to grad school there, I rode my bike from Brookline to Cambridge, and Boston has notoriously aggressive drivers. And I pretty much assumed that all of them were out to kill me every time I was out on the streets. And as I think many people know, I was studying physics in grad school, and well, the law may have been on the side of the bicyclist in this case. The laws of physics are not, and so it's I biked very conservatively, very carefully, and was able to avoid accidents or even close calls the time that I was doing that. So yes, while the bicyclist may well have been in the right in this particular case, it's a good idea for everyone to behave as safely as they can in these circumstances. Do you want to have another shot before I give it over to Councilmember Foe, Councilmember Smith?
No, I already skipped the line once.
Okay. Councilmember Foe.
Just very briefly, Marissa, it's very good to have you on the team. This is a tremendous presentation, and to see some data on the traffic issues that we have as a town are astounding. I was not anticipating 25,930 camera citations issued over a 6-month period. 437 motor vehicle accidents, 132 hit and runs, is just unbelievably unsettling. So I am really glad that you are here and that town staff is pushing this so high on our agenda. This is necessary infrastructure spending to ensure the safety of residents and visitors to the town of Riverdale Park. Just watching that video, I think to visiting the state of Maine, where when we are in the General Boothbay area, there's signage anywhere pedestrians exist that cars are to stop for pedestrians. I know that doesn't solve every problem that we have here, but when we're talking about this, I would love to see creative signage enter into this dialogue to ensure that that sickening video does not happen again. We're so lucky that that didn't result in a fatality. I cannot advocate cannot advocate enough on how important this is to our community. The number one issue that I hear about day in and day out is pedestrian safety and the traffic problems that we have. So, Mr. Town Manager, you have my support to spend as much as you need and more. It's seriously, if we can protect one resident from some of the horrificness that we've had on the East-West Highway, a mother dying in front of her children. This is so serious. This is so significant. This dialogue is, I'm taking pictures and sending it to residents that are on the horn about this particular information. This is so exactly what we need. And I'm just so grateful that you brought this and put it in front of us today. With that, I'll yield.
Thank you, Councilmember Foe. Councilmember Smith.
There we go. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a serious issue. We have to acknowledge that it's not just an issue that's happening in our community. This is a problem in the DMV community at large. Mr. Mayor, until tonight, I thought that everyone that I knew in DC or in the DC area that rode a bike had been hit by a car at least once, but apparently that's not the case. I was able to be on scene just a few minutes after this happened. There are several children that live on those streets, on that street. There are several children that, may have a ball go into the street or crossing the street, or as in this case, doing everything they were supposed to correctly, and a negligent driver. Yeah, you guys saw the video. That video was sent to me within minutes of it happening. And I'm still not feeling great about it. Particularly in Riverdale Park Station, we need to enhance pedestrian, cyclists, all forms of activity to go on the trail, increase that safety. The current holdup, we need to do it we need to do it town-wide. But there seems to be a holdup with transferring the roads in Riverdale Park Station to the town from KFRITS. It's significantly behind now, and I hope we can move forward on that a little more expeditiously. And in the meantime, in places like Riverdale Park Station and elsewhere in town where this happens prominently, anything we can do to calm that traffic through expenditures, but even, if it's parking vacant police cruisers nearby these intersections or something, anything we can do to get folks to slow down. We need to do that, and happy to support any legislation that comes before us to appropriate funds for that purpose.
Thank you, Councilmember. Are there additional council comments on this report? Are there any public comments on the report? Councilmember Lingblad. please speak.
Wanted to lower my hand first, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much. Ms. Davis, thank you for that presentation, and I'd appreciate it if you could email a copy of it to me, please.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. In terms of the items that you look to implement in order to address the numbers you presented regarding the past 6 months, if there are priority items that my feeling is it's my suggestion, and I hope other council members weigh in on their thoughts on this, with their thoughts on this. There are items that you know right off the bat that you would like to get started on and would like to see an appropriation of funds towards. Could you please draw something up and be able to present it to council by next work session?
And if I may, sir, that's our plan.
All right.
Our plan was to come here tonight and give a high level overview and to get a sense of where the council is on what we're proposing. And it seems so far that there's general support among the council to further investigate this. So we will move forward with our plans to drill down, if you will, and solidify some requests. And we actually believe that for the next several work sessions, that we will have a segment on Walk Bike Drive where we'll be walking through this, because we are talking about a proposed significant investment over and above the significant investments that the mayor and council have already authorized.
Okay, I was just, my thought was is if there is some, in order to help staff take a more proactive approach, for lack of a better term, wanting to get something done in a timely manner, that I just, and as we're going to be talking about this more in the future, if there's items that they know that they would like to see to begin work on and to be implemented in the near future, to be able to bring that to us so that we're able, the body is able to work on it and get those funds directed towards what it is they want to accomplish.
I understand, sir, and we will make sure that happens.
Okay. That was my main concern regarding that. In terms of observations, I know that we have striping that has gone in on the project, the roadway up there at River Tech Court in front of College Park Academy, leading from the circle up to River Road. The one thing I'm noticing is that automobile drivers are getting into the habit of not staying in a single lane when they get up to River Road, and those folks that are wanting to make a right on River Road are cutting over into the bike lane to do so. Now, my understanding is that staff is looking at some type of item, roadway directional or traffic directional feature to put in the, between the bike lane, the marked bike lane and the marked roadway within that space. My hope is that that's able to be addressed sooner rather than later, even if it's just something that's a stand-in for now, till something more permanent can go in. because I can see that as essentially an accident waiting to happen.
If I may, sir, Ivy may be able to speak to this in greater detail, but it's my understanding that we have a cost estimate from the engineers just under $20,000 to make some improvements there. And we are in the process of soliciting bids for that, along with several other projects.
Okay, so you're expecting that project to be completed in what time frame?
I don't know if we have a time frame. Ivy, if you could jump in on that, we may want to do that one as a standalone. Ivy, are you able to comment on that?
Yes, sir. We had batched it with the other road improvement projects, but because of some of the complaints we received just recently, we've decided to pull that one out and let that proceed ahead of the other ones, as well as some patchwork in the town center parking lot, and I guess some deteriorated roadway on Lafayette in that same area. So yes, yeah, we're hoping to package those 3 projects together over the next 30 days with the contractor who worked on the most recent road improvement projects. So we're looking at doing a barrier along almost the entire length of Rivertech Court with a low profile curb and bollards in strategic locations, especially at the intersections. Because we have
Okay.
gotten reports that motorists tend to move into the bike path when attempting to make a turn anywhere along Rivertech Court. There have been, and Marissa can speak to this better, there are also complaints about parents parking in the bike path near College Park Academy, waiting for the children or dropping them off or picking them up, and
Okay.
putting the bicyclists in the through lane. And so she's
Okay.
going to have a conversation with the principal there to see what other options there might be for the parents.
Okay. Well, that's something you see along Taylor Road for the folks dropping off and picking up from Riverdale Elementary on a regular basis. So
Oh, yes.
always something. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Councilmember. Are there additional council or public comments on this presentation? As usual, I'd like to save my questions and comments till the end, so I have a couple. One of them is that I would be interested, if it's possible, in knowing where and perhaps when during the day, during the week, the accidents have occurred. And I'll talk with you later this week, Mr. Town Manager, to see if I can get some form of data that I can sprinkle on top of the redistricting maps that I have. I think I might be able to take, if you just have, block number and date and time and so on, I might be able to generate a graphic showing us where the accidents are happening, which might help us focus our efforts. Another idea, many years ago, I believe we might still have 1 or 2 on our police vehicles. We had license plate readers. And I would be interested in discussing with you and Chief Wixons as to whether having some fixed license plate readers might help us to discourage the hit and run accidents. So if we can work with the state, and I know that they require that any data from license plate readers to go directly to them. We have to request it, but if we could work with them and get the information of license plates that went by and find vehicles that match the description, then we might be able to have better enforcement of hit and runs and find a way to discourage them. So just a couple of ideas. I have a few others that are even more half-baked than those, and I've made notes of a few of them, and I'll discuss them with you, Mr. Town Manager, later this week. But it was quite a presentation. Thank you again, Ms. Davis, for collecting the data, making the presentation, and for the the work you're putting in. This is very important to all the members of council, and I think to the residents of Riverdale Park also to improve safety and make it safe for everyone to get around in the ways that they need to. And I guess one other thing, just to cap off my comments, is to say that while I think it's great that we have 200 households that have 0 vehicles, I think it would be great if we could get that number up. If we had more people taking public transportation, more people riding their bikes, more people using micromobility to get around, and to get that number up from 200. So let's look at that as a goal also. If we can create programs to incentivize people to give up their vehicles, that would be fantastic. And that's all I have to say on this. Thank you again. Look at that. I'm next. Mayor's report. So I have a lot to discuss. It's been a very busy month. I'll start with just some very quick ones. Tomorrow is Tuesday, November 8th, and it is a special day. It is Election Day. If you have not yet voted in the so-called gubernatorial election in Maryland, then tomorrow is your last chance. The polls open at 7 a.m. They close at 8 p.m. And if it's any sort of draw at all, I will be at the polls for much of the day, perhaps not the whole day, but I would say most of the day. And you can stop by and I will be happy to talk to you about anything that you want to. So you can sort of, what's the phrase, buttonhole me and tie me down and make me talk about whatever you want to talk about. I am going to encourage everyone to vote, but I'm going to stay nonpartisan here and say that all I hope is that as many eligible voters as are in town can vote as possible. That I think that would be ideal for our democracy, to have people turn out in large numbers to vote tomorrow. Very short one. Yesterday was a shift from standard time from daylight savings time. And it's a good idea at these shifts twice a year to change your smoke detector batteries. So if you haven't, make a note and try to change them quickly. It's a simple thing to do and it can save lives. So you have a smoke detector that's functioning well. And honestly, my smoke detectors, their batteries tend to run out about 3 o'clock in the morning, and they make this really annoying beeping sound. And so it will allow you to have a good night's sleep on the night that would have happened in the first place. This Friday, November 11th, is Veterans Day. We will be having not a ceremony as we traditionally had pre-pandemic, but we'll have a laying of the wreath at 11 a.m. And I am preparing a video with remarks on my thoughts on Veterans Day this year. And that's all written up, and I need to find an hour or so to record and process the video, and then that will be shared by the town, assuming I can get it done in time by Thursday evening, so you can watch that. One of the things that I discovered in my research, and I always do a lot of research every year preparing my Veterans Day remarks, is I was looking at the death tolls in Vietnam. I'm pushing 60 years of age, and so I have a lot of memories about the impact that the Vietnam War had on society. It was very disruptive to American society. So I was looking at the death toll in the worst parts of the war. And the death toll in 1968 was about 18,000 people during the year. 18,000 soldiers were killed in action or died of the wounds that they received. A horrifying number. And that leads, of course, to my next topic. The thing I always discuss, I have been discussing for every month and twice a month since the beginning of the pandemic, which is the pandemic, because right now we are having weekly deaths nationally of around 3,000. So there were 16,000, 17,000 people who died in 1968 in the entire year. We're having 3,000 deaths a month. The pandemic is still very much underway. And last January, there was 1 week where there were 17,000 deaths, almost the same as the annual number of deaths in the Vietnam War. And yet, when I walk around, then it seems that a lot of people think the pandemic is over. And I just have to ask everyone to please, pardon the cross-reference, but please take a deep breath. Think about what you're doing. Think about the safety of yourself. Think about the safety of your family. Think about the safety of others, and do things to make everything safer for everyone. It is, as with the walk, drive, bike initiative, it's everyone's responsibility to try to prevent transmission, to minimize transmission. There have been a few research items that have come out in the last few weeks on COVID that I wanted to bring up before leaving this topic. One of them, I think I might have mentioned this last week, is that people are really looking at COVID as having 2 phases. There's the acute phase where you are sick, you're staying home from work, you're isolating to the best of your ability from other people. And that tends to last, depending on who you talk to, from 5 days to 15 days. And then there's a longer stage where you still have aspects of the disease going on in your body that are causing problems. So I think I mentioned this or alluded to it last week. The chance that you will have a cardiovascular event, a stroke, a heart attack, something of that, blood clots, is increased by factors of 2 and 4 for about 90 days after the acute phase. And so I'm telling everyone this to say that if you have had COVID, if you are having symptoms of a blood clot, if you have an ache in your leg, an ache in some other extremity, if you feel like your heart is having problems, if you feel like your vision is blurry, that you are having problems on one side of your head, please don't dismiss them. Please take it very seriously. The risk is highest in 90 days after you've been infected. Please pay attention to them, and please see a doctor as quickly as you can if that happens to you. The other bit of research is on another aspect of long COVID. There's a number of the symptoms of long COVID are varied. Some people have brain fog, some people have trouble with sleep, some people have trouble with walking, with maintaining energy, with there's a syndrome called POTS, where when you stand up, that your heart blood pressure doesn't stay up, and so you tend to fall down. And the numbers that seem to be settling in are that about 20% of the people who contract COVID develop long COVID. And by what does long COVID mean? Well, about 6 months after contracting COVID, then about 15%, about 3/4 of those who had symptoms that lingered more than the initial long phase, still have persistent symptoms of long COVID. And the quite unpleasant research that came out is that a year later, a year after infection, about 15% of the people who were infected are still reporting long COVID symptoms. So it seems to be lasting up to a year for about 1 in 6 people who are infected. And those are not good statistics. I believe that we're still under 50% for council members being infected, but if the entire council became infected, then one of us statistically would develop long COVID. The rates of long COVID seem to be uniform with age. So all age brackets, young children, teenagers, people in their 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s all seem to have similar rates of long COVID. The only group that had lower rates of long COVID was 60 and over. And the speculation of the researchers was that those people didn't survive their initial bout of acute COVID. So it's what I've been saying before, what I said at the beginning. Please try to prevent getting infected. This can impact not just a few weeks and not just yourself. It can affect everyone in the community if you get the virus, if you pass it on, and it can affect you for perhaps the rest of your life. So please be careful and avoid poorly ventilated spaces, avoid large crowds of people, wear a mask, encourage others to wear masks, and especially for the businesses in town, if you can upgrade your HVAC systems to filter the virus out of the air, or add on systems to sterilize the air to prevent infection at your business. These are all great ways to prevent transmission. There is one bit of good news that came out of the long COVID research this week, and this is a brand new report, so I'm hoping to see if it's confirmed. Is that one of the more recent antivirals, Paxlovid, taking that during the acute phase of COVID, is reducing your chances of getting long COVID by about 25% relative. So if you remember back, the original number is that 20% of those who contract COVID develop long COVID. So that reduces it to 15%. That's a very significant change. And so if you do get COVID, try to get some doses of Paxlovid. Some people, perhaps myself, have conflicting medications and can't do that, but try to do it, and it will prevent your chances of long COVID. And that wraps up my report on COVID for this month. Few little small things. I think that Councilmember Foe might touch on this as well, perhaps Councilmember Smith. We all three attended an event at Riversdale last week where a portrait, a mosaic portrait of Adam Francis Plummer was unveiled to the public for the first time. We heard from the artist, we heard from those who contributed financially to the commissioning of the piece, and it was a fantastic. Councilmember Smith reminds me in a text message that Councilmember Sadiq was also there. Thank you for that reminder. So yes, it was a fantastic event, and I was glad to be there. And I encourage everyone to get to the museum and see the mosaic as soon as possible. I received a letter. It's in the correspondence summary that went out with this meeting from the mayor of Apala, calling on us to renew and strengthen the sister cities relationship. And I sent a reply. The letter from the mayor of Apala was hand carried by former Mayor Vernon Archer. And I sent a hand carried letter back with him, agreeing that we needed to strengthen our ties. And in writing that letter, I realized that next spring will be the 15-year celebration anniversary of the beginning of that relationship, the formal start of the sister cities relationship with Apala. So I think I'm hoping that if things go well, that I can perhaps travel down to Apala this summer to celebrate the 15 years. It's not on the rest of the agenda for tonight. The redistricting committee met earlier or late in October, excuse me, and we'll meet again for a public meeting on Saturday, 9:30 a.m. on Zoom. A community conversations. I'm sorry, I don't have the name of that embedded in my head very well. So it's 9:30 a.m. on Zoom. The link for that is on the town's website, so please join us. One more bit of news, a volunteer activity, is that the County Councilmember Daniel Glaros is organizing a trash cleanup event this Saturday also at 8:30 a.m. Please join her at the Rinaldi Bowling Alley, and several people will be picking up trash. Given the 9:30 a.m., I'm not sure if I can do much except drop by and maybe pick up a couple of dozen pieces of trash, but we'll see what I can do to be part of that. And I'll close my report by wishing everyone a happy and safe Thanksgiving later this month. I'm certainly looking forward to that long weekend and spending time with family and stuffing myself silly. And I hope that everyone else has a happy and safe Thanksgiving as well. That concludes my report. If there are no questions or comments, I think we should move on to the town manager's report. Mr. Town Manager.
Yes, sir. A few things. Actually, you've covered a few things that were on my list, Mr. Mayor, so I'll be shorter this evening. I do want to start off, the mayor mentioned businesses improving their air circulation, their HVAC systems, or having devices to purify the air, like upper air UVC systems. The town, and it's through its business growth grant program, has funding available to assist businesses in carrying out those activities. So if you're a town business and you're interested in that type of a project, please contact Town Hall, or you can email Brian Shelton directly, and his information's on the website. A reminder that Town Hall and Department of Public Works operations will be closed Friday in honor of Veterans Day. We will have, as I understand it, a Department of Public Works person assisting in picking up the trash on Saturday, though. Is that correct, Ivy?
Yes, sir. That's correct.
Okay.
We'll have several staff participating in the collection of the full, bags.
Fabulous. It's good to support that effort. And there's, in addition to the community conversation, this Saturday, there's a Town Seal Design Committee meeting this Thursday at 7:30 p.m. And that's also via Zoom. And the link in that for that meeting is on the town's website. Staff attended a meeting on Friday with many other municipalities and our shared legal counsel as it relates to Comcast cable franchise agreement. So we don't have any public information that we can share. But we are hoping to have some public information that we can bring forward to share with the mayor and council and the community at the work session on the 21st. But it was an informative meeting, but they made clear that the contents of it at this point are still attorney-client privileged. So as soon as we have that public information, we'll share that with the mayor and council and the community. As the mayor and council likely have seen, we had several things on the agenda we were hoping to bring forward this week. And Mr. Sussman is really swamped. We've been giving him lots of work. And so there's a few items that we were not able to wrap up. And as the mayor mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, we're not able to go forward tonight with the one new business item for the neighborhood safety cameras. But we are working with Mr. Sussman, and as soon as we get that finalized and the COVID policy finalized and a few other items finalized, we'll be bringing those back to the council. And that's all I have for this evening, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Town Manager. Are there questions or comments for the Town Manager? Okay. If not, let's move on to the monthly finance report.
Deputy Director Jones.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council, members of the public. Tonight's finance reports cover the months of August, September, and October, as well as a year-to-date total that covers the revenue and expenditures. So for the month of October, revenue totaled $4,744,000. Expenditures totaled $619,000, with a net of $4,125,208. For the year-to-date total, we have a total figure of $5,431,000, with expenditures totaling $2,269,000, leaving a net of $3,162,644. So in the previous meeting where I presented the revenue reports, I kind of went into a little bit more detail about why, and I'll briefly do so here. So the revenue is a bit higher than it's been in previous fiscal years. For fiscal year 2022, a total of $2,952,000, and fiscal year 2021, that total was $3,197,000. So when we had the issue early in the year of Prince George's County informing the town that there would be a delay, we actually received a delay in our funding, but we received a larger amount for the month of October. So we expect that in the month of November, our total revenues will balance out and look more like how they have in previous years. So it was just a matter of timing where we actually received the real estate revenue later, but at a higher amount for the month of October. If we look at the expenditure side, however, the town continues to be conservative with spending. The fiscal year, for the previous fiscal year, we actually spent more, a total of $676,000. And if we look at the totals for fiscal year 2022 and 2021, the expenditures are also lower than where they were in the current fiscal year. So overall, the town is in a pretty good financial standing at this point. We've received revenue earlier than we have in the past, which is a positive, but we just want to make sure that these figures aren't misrepresented, in that, you know, the town is expected to far exceed where we've been in the past. It's more of just a timing issue. So that explains why the revenue is over $1 million more than where we were. I'm sorry, the revenue was close to about $1 million more than where we were in the previous fiscal years, and that it's more of a timing issue rather than just the town outperforming than what we've done in the past. So that concludes the finance reports. And if there are any questions or concerns, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Deputy Director Jones. Are there questions on the finance report? Hearing none, is there a motion on the monthly finance report?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to adopt the finance report subject to audit.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Lingua, seconded by Councilmember Siddiq. Is there any discussion of the motion? Are there any public comments? Hearing none, I'll do a roll call vote. Councilmember Smith?
Aye.
Councilmember Foe?
Aye.
Councilmember Lingua?
Aye.
Councilmember Siddiq?
Aye.
Councilmember Mejia is not here this evening. Councilmember Mayers?
Aye.
And I abstain. The motion passes 5-0. Thank you. The correspondence summary I discussed previously, the letter from Mayor Javier Avipala is the only item on there. Hope you enjoyed reading that letter. Moving on, fire department report. I did not receive a fire department report. Did staff receive one? I'm seeing
We did not, sir.
Director Barnes shake her head, so looks like not. So that brings us to council committee and board reports. And I will start with Councilmember Smith, Ward 1.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First off, I just want to say I'm sorry for the way I came into this meeting. I'd gotten sidetracked until the mayor sent me a polite text reminding me. And so I was already flustered and came up. And as soon as I got into the meeting, the first thing I saw was a guy getting hit by a bike. So apologize for that. Apologize to the staff and particularly Miss Davis. It's nice to meet you. I promise you I'm normally on better behavior. And I'm looking forward to working together. So that out of the way. I don't want to preempt Councilmember Foe's remarks too much on the event at the Riversdale Mansion to unveil a portrait of Adam Francis Plummer, since I know he has done so much work with the museum and the Plummer family particularly. So I'll be sure to let you have that, Aaron. And it occurred to me as we were there, though, that we have all of this development coming in, nearly 1,000 units in Ward 1 alone over the next few years. And there is a reason that land is valuable, that goes back to the existence of the mansion. So those developers to this day, year 2022, are still profiting or will profit off the forced labor of the Plummer family. So as we talk about the commitments we want from those developers going forward, I think it's important that we include in that some sort of restorative measure to acknowledge the fact that they are purchasing land and selling it at a profit that is valuable because of the work of enslaved people. I'm not sure what that looks like. I'm sure we would want to consult with the museum and the family and whatnot, whether it's, some sort of funding public remembrance or a financial commitment to the museum or to the Descendants Project, which I learned about at the Plummer event, which is really cool. They work to identify descendants of the enslaved at Riversdale and connect folks. So whatever that looks like, I think we should look into it and get those commitments from folks and think about how we as a town can do even more to tell the full story of our town and of the mansion, and include the Plummer family. Apart from that, Manifest Bread in Town Center got a tour behind the scenes of the process Thursday when I ran into Rick and Ty at the farmers market. It's looking great in there. They have huge ovens. They're really hot. There's big mixers. There's a mill thing that I don't exactly understand, but I know it's cool. We're really excited to have them coming in. They tell me that they are aiming for Thanksgiving week to open. And that'll be kind of a soft launch where you'll be able to walk in and get bread. But they specifically said, don't anticipate being able to get any ingredients you need from Thanksgiving dinner there, because that's a pre-order thing and they will not be open in time for pre-orders. So looking forward to having them come in. Just to loop back on the road safety issue, I know the town is doing everything we can to expedite the transfer of the roads, but I mean, we saw in that video what's happening because we entity as a town government that should be responsible for the safety of the roads aren't able to do that because we don't own the roads. K-Fritz, the developers, the HOA, whoever has the governance of it right now, they should certainly be doing things as well. But the fact is they're a property management company or a developer, not a town with enforcement authority. So whatever we can do to expedite that, move forward, I don't know if it would involve adjustment of priorities or something, but it just seems like I was told a little over a year ago, when I came onto this body, that we were a couple months from transferring that, and here we are still. So we need to figure out an answer there. Because watching that video That cyclist was able to walk away from that accident, but it occurred to me, if he fell a little bit differently, if that car was moving a little bit faster, if that cyclist was a child instead, we might be having a much more drastic conversation right now. So, yeah, we need to support the bike ride and drive initiative and see what we can do to improve the safety, particularly in RPS. It also occurs to me, Mr. Mayor, when you mentioned getting cars off the road, having more folks not driving, that we have a request from the developer in Town Center to rezone that area for transit-oriented development, as in mass transit, public transit, that sort of thing. But based on their presentation to the MUTC committee this past week, it seems like they're going to be building some 80 to 100 new parking spaces. I'm not sure if that fits the intended purpose of a transit-oriented development. I know that it's not a good idea to put 100 more cars on the road in our town. So we need to work on that with the developers and get some clear solutions there. And I encourage everyone to attend the MUTC meetings. That was probably the most substantial. I know it was the most substantial conversation I've had with the developers from Werline and Douglas so far. I know Mr. Shelton and others and Mr. Mariel have been in touch. But that's really an opportunity for us to be able to have them on the spot, on the record, and ask them questions. So folks should check that out. Tomorrow, voting. I'll see you at the polls, Mr. Mayor. Can't wait. I'm going to go cast my vote. Probably will hang around, shake some hands and whatnot. So look forward to seeing everybody out there. And lastly, on Veterans Day, I thank all that have served. As many of you know, I myself spent 5 years in the Army. So thank you for your service, everyone, as trite as that can sound sometime. The last poll I saw on this, it was a few years ago, but I think it was Gallup's found that currently in America, fewer Americans than ever before say that they know someone who is somehow affiliated with the US military. And so I'd encourage folks, not just on Veterans Day, but year round, reach out to folks in the community, in your spaces, whether it be, work or social groups or whatnot, and find veterans to talk to. You don't have to necessarily ask them about their experience. They might not be interested in talking about it, but just understand, who we are as people, what challenges we face, what opportunities we provide to the folks we work with and live in community with. I think that would be really great for everybody to have more understanding on that. So with that, that will conclude my remarks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Appreciate your remarks on getting to know the veterans in your life. Also, I work with a lot of veterans, particularly Navy veterans, and they all have a bunch of good stories, and they may not want to share all the aspects of their service, but they certainly do have some fun stories to tell about some things. So it's worth reaching out. Councilmember Foe, Ward 2.
Good evening. Good evening, everybody. It's been a minute since I've got to talk, so I have to find my voice again. Tomorrow is election day. I wish that I could be at Riverdale Park Station, but I am committed, or Riverdale Elementary School, to greet voters, but I am committed to New Carrollton, Robert Frost Elementary School. So if anybody wants to come hang, I'll be there from 7 a.m. till noon. Get out and vote. Pay attention, know what's going on. I think anything less than that is inexcusable. Where we are at this point in our democracy is alarming. And I think Maryland needs to be a lighthouse for the rest of the United States. So last Friday, this has been mentioned a couple of times. I was able to, with a few of my fellow council members, attend a mosaic reveal of Adam Francis Plummer. Just the week leading up to that event was incredibly difficult. I don't know how many of you are aware of this. I am a teacher. I teach U.S. history in a very difficult school to teach at, and this is my 20th year teaching there. And I pride myself in an ability to communicate with people that may struggle communicating with other people. And last week was just very, very difficult. This year has been very, very difficult. I had a student that I taught 4 years ago that just committed first-degree murder. I just constantly am finding myself in these types of situations. I believe Mr. Town Manager used to be police in the general area of where I work in Alexandria. So Friday night, I wanted to come home. I wanted to sit with my son. I wanted to relax. I didn't think that I wanted to put on a suit. It's just how I felt. And we go over to Riversdale, and I don't know, it might have been one of the more impactful nights of my life. It made me realize the work that we are doing here in this community to provide appropriate contextualization to the history that occurred on the land that we live. Maya Davis is a bright light that shines for this community. And if you haven't had the opportunity to sit down and talk with her, she's just such a remarkable hire to take Riversdale where it needs to go. She sat in front of this group of descendants of the Plummer family, of people associated with parks in Prince George's County in the state of Maryland. Her own mother was there. The mayor sat next, and she told a story about the impact that Adam Francis Plummer had on her. And she starts in this vein of talking about having a 10-year-old son and buying him tickets to a concert. And then she relates to a 10-year-old Adam Francis Plummer being enslaved at Riversdale Plantation. And it shocks you to your core to envision that. I mean, it was just fundamentally life altering. You know what I mean? And to be lucky enough to be mentioned in the first paragraph of what she's talking about, or the second, whatever it is, just to have my name and our council mentioned as being prominent supporters of the work that they are doing there was just mind-numbing. And it was exactly what I needed. So I was listening to you do your proclamation for municipalities, and I thought, you're gosh darn right. That's exactly, this is a great time to celebrate what it is that we are able to accomplish at this level of government. Good government exists, and it's at the municipal level. But back to the point, and then just to see, you're sitting in this room surrounded by images of affluent white people from hundreds of years ago, and to know that there will be a black face hanging on those walls is just altering to a level that I couldn't even begin to explain to you. To have it be a mosaic because of its long lastingness, to see those family members who are able to descend through that horrible institution, to see Reverend Jerome Fowler, who has advocated on behalf of that family so well for so long. They just had a sense of accomplishment, a sense of seeing their family represented next to one of the first families of Maryland. It was so remarkably touching to just be able to be in that room and know that you're fighting on behalf of, what is right. So, like, as we look at the future of Adam and Emily Plummer Park, I want to put this on staff and council. We need to get it right. we need to hit a home run in that space to make sure that we can commemorate the struggle that so many in our community went through. You're sitting in the back of a room honoring people who in one of the exhibits, it mentions their name, or the number and the price that they were to this place. The work we do has meaning. And for me on Friday night, it came full circle. I have responses from Riversdale where they were not interested in supporting me in trying to change Riverdale Elementary to Adam Francis Plummer Elementary. That's still an initiative that I would like to seek out. Literacy stolen illegally, given to Adam Francis Plummer, kept that family together. It allowed them to communicate with Sarah Miranda after she had been sold to a plantation in New Orleans. And you talk about that time post 1865, post Juneteenth, when these families are scrambling to find their loved ones. The lack of literacy, which was oftentimes legislated upon these people, to have them be able to have that tool, to be able to communicate and reconnect at Rose Hill. I don't know. It's just a remarkable story. And I believe that it's one that a narrative that we need to continue to push. Maya Davis will sit there and compare him to Frederick Douglass. Frederick Douglass, one of my historical heroes. To have him compared, Adam Francis Plummer, to Frederick Douglass shows you just how remarkable it is and how lucky we are that he was able to write and he was able to save his story, and how many stories have been lost because of that lack of literacy. So I feel like this discussion is just beginning, and I'm so grateful and thankful to be a part of that moving forward. It's truly one of the honors of my lifetime. Also, the other day, sadness came over me when I recognized that Councilwoman Danielle Galeros, Ward 2 resident on the Prince George's County board, attended her last meeting. I believe she is no longer going to be in session, and tomorrow we will vote for her replacement. And as a council member trying to learn the ropes, I often tell people there's no book on how to do this. You meet people that you trust. You communicate a lot. You try and get out there and do the best job that you possibly can. How lucky have I been in Ward 2 to be able to go over to my mayor's house and ask questions, and go to his neighbor's house, Danielle Galeros, and ask her questions and receive guidance. Absolutely fundamentally remarkable. And I've been having some dialogues with council members behind the scene, but I would like to start a dialogue about how we as a town can continue to honor her in an appropriate way. She has represented us all tremendously well. And I believe it is the duty of the town to honor that service in an appropriate fashion. Remember, got to get out and vote if you haven't. Tomorrow, starting at 3, you're going to have a lunar eclipse. I think it's the last one till 2026. Mr. Mayor, you may still be up. I don't know. It lasts from 3 to 6, so I might get to see some of it when I'm at 7 a.m. at Robert Frost when it's 45 degrees. But again, I can never begin to describe to you how grateful I am to hold this position and have my opinion heard, and to be able to ramble frequently in front of you. It has truly been an honor. I am grateful for all of you, and I hope that every single one of you is doing well and has an incredible Thanksgiving surrounded by friends and family. And with that, Mr. Mayor, I yield my time.
Thank you, Mr. Councilman. Appreciate your remarks. Let's move on to Councilmember Lingle, Ward 3.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Good evening to everybody who's participating virtually in this meeting. I've been asked, I ran into some folks at CCAR CDC at the event that Councilmember Glaros hosted on November 1st, her final town hall meeting that she holds, in which a number of people paid recognition to her service to this area for really what's been the past 16 years, as she was an administrative assistant to then County Council member Eric Olson, prior to her running and being elected in 2014. And it struck me that evening as well that it feels incumbent upon the town to, in some way, shape, or form, with some type of event, recognize this 16 years of public service that she has given to Prince George's County, to District 3, and as well to the town of Riverdale Park. What form that will be, I hope we can come to a quick agreement on, and to be able to do so, both an agreement and that recognition in the not too distant future. The folks of the CCAR CDC asked me to share with council what occurred at their meeting on November 2nd, and what items were on the agenda, because they thought they might they might find some of this of interest. Regarding status on the Sarvis Empowerment Cafe, they've had a county permit extended, and with that, the subcontractors have also have had their permits extended as well. University of Maryland School of Architecture students there developed graphic art options that are under consideration to engage passersby along Kenilworth Avenue, and that's going to be forwarded. Those designs are going to be forwarded to the Sarvis task team. The CDC has also submitted an application package to Maryland Neighborhood Business Works for the Sarvis Empowerment Cafe project. And it's essentially, they're looking for a loan. They're submitting a loan application, which they understand is being recommended for approval and will be presented to the committee in mid-November. They also have a grant application in for a community partnership grant. Was due to be submitted at the end of the week. Whether or not it got done, I've not been made aware. They've received grant award, a Crescent Cities grant for an amount of $4,000. They are working with Employ Prince George's for job opportunities at the CDC and Sarvis Cafe. And there are applicants that have accepted CCAR offer for positions of receptionist, administrative assistant, and for programming, and that being CDBG and project programs. The CDC has also received a grant award from the Redevelopment Authority pertaining to Sarvis Cafe to deal with some low voltage cabling for an amount of just over $12,600. They acknowledged the completion of the grant and the grant award from the town from FY22. That was for food insecurity. They also acknowledged grant awards from the City of College Park from their FY23 budget for food insecurity in an amount of $25,000, and they're just waiting on those funds from the City of College Park. Grant award from the City of Hyattsville for FY23 for food insecurity. This is a combination for the CCAR CDC program and the Route 1 Cares Coalition, an amount of $25,000. They also received a non-departmental county council grant in the amount of $75,000. And it was for operation support, and they're just waiting on those funds. And they had also awarded a special appropriation of $5,000, and it was for operation support, specifically the tree program they do, and as well they're waiting on those funds. Lastly, the Edmonston Road Rain Garden, Department of Public Works and Transportation has completed the hardscaping over there, and what is next to happen is the planting of trees and shrubs, which is to be determined when that's going to be done. And the opening date for the park, which has been a very long time coming, will be set when the trees and shrubs and the labor to plant them in has been secured. There are also 2 panels remaining to be completed by Hopewell Manufacturing, specifically the welcome panel and the rain garden panels. There's also some work with SHA that they're looking to follow up on in the near future. Those are the items that were brought up on November 2nd. They will be looking at their next meeting for the CCAR CDC will be on December 6th, starting at 6:30, running till 7:30 p.m. And again, anyone interested in attending that meeting, you can go to ccarcdc.org for more information. And anyone interested in working with the CDC on a voluntary basis or otherwise, you can contact them as well. Pardon me. I'm seeing on their paperwork here that it looks like the address has changed to ccarcdc.com. For a substantial amount of time, it's been ccarcdc.org. Looks like it has been switched over now to ccarcdc.com. They can also be reached on Twitter at ccarcdc, and they're also on Facebook, ccarcdc 20737. As I had mentioned last week, that there have been reports from residents regarding improvements that folks are making to their properties, and without going through the process of acquiring a permit, making sure that that such work is within the guidelines set forth by the county as well as the town. As well as I'm noticing on the way some tree work that is being done on trees that are in the public right of way. And then what I'm noticing is that as I go down a certain street and I look up and I'm looking at these trees, I'm noticing they look a little bit different. And as I come around and I look on the side of a limb, I see a fresh cut that's been made. And I'm not sure exactly how it's the best way to address both issues. I know that there's regular postings in the town crier regarding applying for permits. In the past, we've made acquiring a permit fairly straightforward and fairly easy, as well as quite inexpensive at one point free. Since that's that's changed, I'm not sure what more we can really be doing other than looking at the next fiscal year's budget in terms of considering bringing on, I don't know what type of position would be full-time or part-time or how, or an additional code officer who would be available on weekend. That's just one idea. That's just the first thing off the top of my head that I was thinking about. I'm not sure if that's going to be the right approach to go. I think there's a lot of conversation to be had between council on this matter so that we can move forward in a way that is going to be more effective for the town as a whole, especially as we begin to consider the initiatives that we're looking at, that the Maryland Sustainability Committee is looking at regarding tree canopy and how we're going to approach that with the community, and how we're going to be able to have that interaction, that dialogue within the community to be able to help improve and develop a cohesive plan that has substantial buy-in from the residents of the town regarding that. The use of an additional code officers may figure into that substantially or not. I mean, there's much to consider and to discuss. I feel among the council towards the establishment of both that program as well as how we're approaching code in general throughout the community. And with that, I will conclude my report.
Thank you, Councilmember Lingua. Councilmember Siddiq, Ward 4.
Councilmember Foe, I appreciate you bringing up the eclipse. It turns out peak eclipsiness will be at apparently around 5 to 5:30 a.m. So that's apparently the best time to look at the eclipse. In other news, Project Glow is a go again next year, so we can get ready for that. Regarding the small business proclamation, do we have a list of small businesses on our website?
Director Barnes or Shelton, can you respond, please?
We're still working to update that as we receive the applications for the business license for this fiscal year.
Okay, thank you. And another important news, the Ravens are now up 14-0. This concludes my report.
Thank you, Councilmember Siddiq. Appreciate that. Councilmember Mejia is, as previously stated, not here this evening. Councilmember Mayers.
Good evening, Mayor and Council and members of the public. I just have two items that I want to touch on. Mr. Coleman from 5407 54th Avenue. He called and complained about cars parked on both sides of the street. And especially when they put the SUVs at the corner of 54th going to Spring Lane, when he comes out of his driveway, I think he said that the Metro Access picks him up because he's a veteran. And he couldn't see the other morning when he came out of his driveway because there was a big SUV parked at that blue house at the corner. And a car came speeding down and almost hit him. So he is very upset about that. He wants to talk to someone about those cars parked on the street. And I've seen them because this morning I left the house about 8:15 and both sides of 54th Avenue are covered now in cars. He said he called the police a couple of times and they said that it extends from the residents that live in the apartment. So I don't know if you guys can reach out to him and kind of calm him down. The other topic that I have to discuss is that the tenants on 54th Avenue is complaining about the trash truck. I don't know what we can do about it, that enters our complex to pick the trash up. They leave a stench that lasts for days and they come every day. So you know it is piling up and then the kids play out there. It is awful. Is there anything that we can do with that, with the rental office as far as the garbage truck spilling all of that smelly stuff?
The short answer to your council member is yes. Mr. Shelton, if you can have your staff follow up with the management office at the complex and enforce the applicable codes.
Because it's really bad. And even when it dries and then the sun hit it, it makes the scent intensify. So yes, please. That's the only two reports that I have for this evening.
Thank you for that information, Councilmember. Appreciate the report. Sorry to hear about the trash truck. We many years ago, we had that problem with town trash trucks, and that was part of the motivation for switching vendors. So completely understand. Okay, that brings us to the end of council committee and ward reports. We move now to public comments on non-agenda items and consent agenda items. I don't see any members of the public in attendance, but just in case, we'll pause for just a few seconds. And I guess that staff could speak now if they wanted to, but members of the public. Staff also. Okay, let's move on to the next item, the consent agenda. May I please have a motion to approve the consent agenda items?
So moved.
Is there a
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Foe, seconded by Councilmember Sadiq, I believe. I didn't see your little rectangle right up.
Yes.
But that's what I heard. There's no discussion or debate for the consent agenda item, so I'll move immediately to a roll call vote. Councilmember Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Foe.
Aye.
Councilmember Lingua.
Aye.
Councilmember Sadiq.
Aye.
Councilmember Mejia is absent. Councilmember Mayers.
Aye.
And I abstain. The motion passes 5-0. All items are approved. Let's move on now to our single legislative action item. Motion to adopt ordinance 2022-OR-06 regarding changes to the ethics ordinance. May I have a motion, please? I think we've had enough discussions of this that we can don't need a previous preview. So may I please have a motion?
So moved.
Seconded.
Motion by Councilmember Lingua, seconded by Councilmember Foe. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Is there discussion of the ordinance? For anyone watching on Facebook Live or watching this tape 50 years from now, I'll just say that this ordinance is highly shaped by state law, and the state laws have been updated, and so we are required to adjust our ordinance to match the requirements of the state law. And so that is the purpose of these revisions. So now everyone will know why we are doing this. Okay, any additional discussion? Hearing none, I'll move to a roll call vote. Councilmember Smith,
Aye.
Councilmember Foe,
Aye.
Councilmember Lingua,
Aye.
Councilmember Siddiq,
Aye.
Councilmember Mejia is absent, Councilmember Mayers,
Aye.
and I abstain. The motion passes 5-0. Let's move on now to unfinished business. We'll start with ordinance 2022-OR-07 regarding property maintenance code modifications.
Director Shelton. I presume, Mr. Mayor, that you want a presentation from staff.
Yes.
Director Shelton.
Yes, good evening, Mayor and Council and members of the public. This ordinance would create a vacant building registration program requiring vacant property owners to register their property with the town. This problem would protect both residential and commercial neighborhoods from becoming blighted through a lack of adequate maintenance and increased security of those vacant properties. The program would allow inspectors to monitor the property maintenance of these vacant properties so that should emergency responders need to enter, they're able to do so without concern about failing property maintenance causing a hazard to their health. Not to mention the vacant properties are susceptible to emergency scenarios caused by lack of maintenance, such as flooding from a burst water pipe or fires from wire degradation. Are there any questions or concerns about the proposed vacant building registration program?
Sounds like everyone's happy with it.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yes, please.
Pardon me a second. Just want to make sure it's part of pulling up the, oh, just want to make sure I was pulling up the right item here. With the stuff that we're looking at from like last week, we're dealing with part on section 4. Or no, pardon me, section 3. Regarding new section 302.12 regarding bamboo. Which on page 3, there's this minor typo where it's listed as 301.12, which needs to get corrected. And what's being set up here is that, you know, not allowing bamboo to grow without proper upkeep, or to spread onto adjoining property or public rights of way. If we're looking at passing this and then it goes through, the way this is set up, this would go into effect 20 days following approval, which means any and all folks with bamboo on their property would have, after that time, have something go into effect that they would need to be addressing. And depending on when we're voting on this, and be that if we're considering this for December or later, In the first case, it would be quite an interesting Christmas gift to be giving to the residents of this town. Or were it to be done later, to have them address this, try to start addressing this in the midst of winter. I don't think is an approach that would be prudent to take. My suggestion would be to treat the addition of section 302 as a separate ordinance change, and look to do this so that it goes in and stipulate in the language that this is something that would go into effect either, and we can discuss a time period, 60 days from enactment, 90 days from enactment, or consider it something that would go into effect at the start of the next fiscal year. In the sense then it gives residents, and I bring that up so in a sense it gives residents time to deal with this in a way that's going to be less stressful than having to scramble after 20 days from it going into effect. Because one of the things that, discarding of bamboo is not an easy task. It's not taken as part of the yard leaf trash, or in terms of branches and other things, and it has to be discarded and dealt with in a way so it can be essentially disposed of as regular trash. So, and to do that, not an easy task.
Does that conclude your testimony?
All I have to say.
Okay. Mr. Town Manager, I don't know that we have had an effective date further out than the traditional minimum on ordinances previously. Is there a legal barrier to that?
There's not, sir. And as I've seen it done in other jurisdictions in Maryland, we would be able to most likely keep it in the same ordinance. And there would just, under section 4, it would have language except for as outlined in section such and such above, and have a separate date called out for that.
That sounds reasonable. Okay, thank you for bringing that topic up, Councilmember Limbo. Good point. Councilmember Foe.
No, I was just going to say the same exact thing. That's very reasonable. Bamboo is incredibly difficult to get rid of, and I think there needs to be some outreach and some time. So I think it's a very good suggestion. Thank you, council member.
Welcome. I'd like to thank staff for putting this language together on these items. It's been a considerable amount of work. It's been a very worthy effort. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, if I could ask a question of Councilmember Lingua.
Please.
Councilmember, would you be good if we follow the recommendation of just saying July 1 as the effective date?
I have no problem with that. I think that's fair enough. I think that's something then that it gives staff time to bring this to the awareness of the community. So, and essentially then if this was to be acted on in December, essentially that's, better part of over 6 months for folks to consider how they want to deal with this.
So, Mr. Mayor, unless there's objections from other members of the council, we'll have Mr. Sussman make those changes.
Okay, sounds good. There are still, there's a council comment and a member of the public, so let's continue with that before we, well, this ordinance hasn't yet been introduced, so we can go ahead and make the changes in the draft ordinance, I think. Looks like Council Member Smith dropped his hand, so I'll recognize.
Oh, no, sorry, that was in anticipation of being called.
Okay, please go ahead.
Do we have any programs within the town to provide assistance for folks who need to clear out the bamboo? I ask because I don't know much about it, but if it's complicated to get rid of, I assume it's also expensive to get rid of. And up until the enactment of this ordinance, these are folks that would have been following the rules that they were given, and it would be an unplanned expense. Also think about maybe folks who bought a property that it creeped onto, and so it's not exactly their fault either. Any number of reasons. I think it would be good if it doesn't exist for us to create some sort of, I don't know if it's matching funds or whatnot, but to provide financial assistance for that.
Mr. Mayor, I could address part of the question. And Ivy, if you could jump in here. I believe that the town's residential trash vendor, Jada, will haul bamboo as part of trash. Is that correct? Ms.
That's
Lewis?
correct. Yes, it is.
So while it cannot go in yardways, because the yardways can turn into mulch and then that just perpetuates the problem, it can be bagged and put with the regular trash.
Is the removal of it like from the dirt? It sounds like folks are saying that's a difficult thing. 'Cause you can't just cut it, right? It grows in like an hour.
Yeah, that's outside of any expertise that I or anybody on our team has in terms of how to get rid of it.
I can weigh in on this. When I moved into my house, then there was bamboo coming invasively from adjacent yards. And I spent an entire summer clearing the back part of my property. So maybe it was 50 or 60 feet across and about 4 or 5 feet wide. And I spent the entire summer out there with a fireman's axe, chopping up the roots, placing them in a hot spot in the sun and making sure that they were dead before they left my property. And it was a lot of work. It was a tremendous amount of work to get the roots out. I do not want to minimize exactly how much work it is for anyone thinking of doing it. Ms. Katz, your turn will come. I see that you are there. Councilmember Lingua, you have another comment?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, having had the experience to effectively remove bamboo, one needs to get their back into it. It's really going down and extracting a root system out. The other way that it can be done, but probably not a very good idea, is being that technically bamboo is a grass, a twice dosing of Roundup over 1 week, over a week period, will kill off growth that is there. Yet there's after a time, it will return. So it's as the mayor knows and as I've experienced, it is very involved. The last person I know who did a substantial removal of bamboo was the late David Shade, who lived down on Taylor Road. he cleared out an entire area behind his yard that essentially backed up to a wooded area, right, bambooed area behind his house. He was on the west side of Taylor, and he brought in a essentially a backhoe to do it because he removed a section. You said you had a 60 by 6 area, Mr. Mayor?
Roughly.
Yeah, he removed something. He removed something that was essentially a good 30 by 100 feet. It was substantial. So unless one is going to take that approach, it's going to be a very involved, very time-consuming process. And hence the reason why I want the need to be able to give folks as much time as possible to deal with this.
Yes. Before I recognize Ms. Katz, I'll just say that Roundup is not very effective against bamboo. I have some personal experience with that also. So, for what it's worth. Councilmember Smith, I keep having to bump you, Ms. Katz. Councilmember.
So just quickly, I think with the extended enactment date on this, we can have more conversations about potential support programs to help folks fund this. If that's anything that would hold this up, we can figure it out between now and the enactment.
Okay. Ms. Katz, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. So my comments are regarding this section 301.12. I was at the work session and I did not speak up at that time. I've been thinking about when this information was presented here, and it had to do with the vacant properties. Is that correct? I just want to better understand where this just about bamboo is coming from, because I was thinking it was related specifically about the vacant properties and was intended to help with that issue. Is that correct?
The bamboo code amendments would apply to all properties, not only the ones that are registered under the vacant property registration program.
Sure. Yeah, I suppose so. But okay, so but is it more about, well, I guess my point being, bigger picture here, is this about this just being bamboo? I mean, there's English ivy, there's even native plants. To me, this seems to be more about, I love this. I really love the point here about spreading into adjoining property or public rights of way. I think that's well-intentioned and really a really good aspect to add to this type of ordinance. But I'm not understanding why it's all about bamboo, because I definitely, there's older residents, which it's definitely, they're not physically going to be able to do what's been described by Councilmember Lingua and the mayor, because that is what's required. And yes, it still will come back. You can even try pouring boiling water on the roots, but you're going to have to disturb the ground significantly to pull up those roots. And the irony there is, once you've disturbed the ground that significantly, other invasives come in, unless you really have a whole plan to put more soil in and plant things immediately. So it is a big project to remove bamboo. But I really just wanted to say I really do like the intention of this aspect about plants and keeping them from spreading into adjoining properties or growing up properties or being out of control, basically. Although it says without proper upkeep in this language, and I also really would like to understand what's meant by that a little bit better too. So this is just coming from me as a resident. These are the parts about it that I've been thinking about. I don't know why it just says bamboo. I don't know what proper upkeep is, but I definitely like the intent of talking about what's in people's yards, plant-wise, keeping it on their property and out of public rights of way. Poison ivy would be another example that I have to avoid all the time. on my walks that's in people's yards and coming onto the sidewalk area. Anyway, can anyone help me understand a little bit better why this is about bamboo and what?
I'll try to answer that question. I believe that one of the problem properties that that inspired this legislation overall had a bamboo problem on the property. So the bamboo was basically surrounding the house and making it difficult to get in to even check out the situation. And so I think that that's the reason that this was included, is just because the bamboo was making that situation worse, even than just having a vacant and unmaintained house. Councilmember Lingua?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Really, it's, the reason that, the property maintenance code is addressing bamboo is for, a lot of the things that you brought up, Ms. Katz, as well as what was talked about before, that it grows very rapidly, it grows very aggressively. It's not just, one vacant property. It's been several vacant properties, as well as just other properties around town where it's just grown unchecked. And it's trying to find a way somewhere, to start. Even to the point of, what David Shade had to go through, the late David Shade had to go through, dealing with the bamboo behind his property. That was coming from both that essentially started on what was a private property, which was just really empty lots, just wooded lots, that had, started there, spread onto what was a public right of way, and then encroached on the back of his property. So it's a number of different scenarios where bamboo has been growing unchecked and has been intruding on other people's properties and or right of ways. And it is, and as you pointed out, and as we've all noted, that in order to address it is causing substantial disruption of topsoil, of which, you're correct. It's best to get something ready to go and planted in there afterwards, as well as just, making sure that, doing a thorough enough job to make sure that there's not going to be, or at least minimize the amount that is going to grow back, because it's almost nearly impossible to get to a point where it's not going to grow back at all, just by the nature of how bamboo can grow in small sections of root, and in just how a single plant can spread and grow and develop, and root systems can mature, so that as opposed to having shoots that are coming up that are quarter inch around, they're coming up and they're 6 inches around. So it's just trying to find a way to address this, yet that bamboo specifically, because compared to, say, what you're talking about, this just English ivy is fairly straightforward to be, that you can take care of, and it's something that can go in your yard compost and be taken off and made into mulch. As I said before, that can't be done with bamboo. It has to be thrown out as trash. So this is just a way to be able to start addressing something that allows everyone to have a better handle on what is growing and what what is not growing on their property or how it's grown on their property.
Does that answer your question, Ms. Katz?
It helps me understand a bit better. I would encourage staff and council to consider a more holistic approach to what you're trying to correct, in this case by just saying bamboo. I think there's other plants as well that could bring down structures. Believe it or not, even English ivy brings down trees. It could fall on a house. I mean, there's, seems like there's a bigger picture here on what's trying to be accomplished with this. Like once again, I said, I think the intention here is good, but the specificity, I think, is like Councilmember Lingua had said, you know, this particular plant is very difficult to remove permanently, and would be very expensive. And if you are not able-bodied, it would be basically impossible for you to even have a chance to remove it. But I think that there is a bigger picture, almost like the chain link fence. You know, there's grant money to remove chain link fences. Maybe that's the direction to go if this is a significant problem with bamboo that the town really wants to address, because it's a tough one.
Thank you. Looks like there's no hands up. So I think we are ready to move on. I think there's been some discussion of the issues, and maybe this may need to take another round before we take action on it. So let's see. Okay. Do we want to move on to the, is there any discussion of the vacant property registration program? That is ordinance 2022-OR-08. Okay, I'm going to be honest that I did not get out my red pen and start going through this, but I will endeavor to do so shortly and see what I can do. But I think the idea, it's something I've been thinking the town should do for many years, and I'm glad to see that we actually have some draft legislation to look at. So many thanks to staff and town attorney for drafting this. Appreciate it. Okay, let's move on the agenda. There's no other discussion. New business item 1 was removed, and so we are to new business item 2, update on the American Rescue Plan third-party programming.
Yes, good evening again, Mayor and Council. Staff have been working on the fiscal year 2023 American Rescue Plan Act grants for nonprofits for quite some time now, and we're excited to bring our recommendations to this meeting on February. Sorry, that's not my it's not my notes. One moment, please. I want to make sure I don't miss anything I meant to say. There we go. So as many of you may know, the nonprofit grants are established as part of the ARPA Economic Recovery Strategy Plan. This program was established by Resolution 2022-R05 on March 7th. The goal of this program is to support nonprofit and faith-based organizations with existing eligible activities under the federal spending guidelines for ARPA. The program is funded by our Economic Recovery Strategy Fund. And on May 2nd, the town awarded food assistance grants to eligible organizations for fiscal year 2022. And the NOFA for the Notice of Funding Availability for the fiscal year 2023 program was released on March 8th, and we've received 11 applications. The review committee was not expecting the administrative costs by those applications that were submitted to be as high on average as the proposed budget stated. In some cases, administrative costs were as high as 100% of the proposed budget. The review committee found that while not a fit for this grant program, the town should still support a few of the described programs. For example, one application described establishing a workforce development grant to support town residents with job training at Sarvis Cafe and Empowerment Center. And while the job training program was not necessarily a fit for this grant program, staff believed the concept could be supported by the town and even could reduce the administrative burden by the applicant by establishing a town program to similar effect for a grant program for job training for residents. Another circumstance detailed in the applications included a capital purchase or capital purchases, which would not qualify for the federally funded program due to the requirements declared by the Treasury. Another application was ineligible as they were neither a nonprofit or a faith-based organization. And lastly, the review committee had concerns about the capacity of some applications as it relates to recent performances of other programs. The review committee recommends limiting the amount of indirect support given to applicants to adhere to federal spending requirements and require that 90% of the funds awarded to each applicant that has been selected to be spent on direct costs benefiting the residents. In total, I think I'm further down. In total, the awards provided or recommended are $98,400. The remaining funds will be included among other funds to stand up town administrative programs like the one I had previously mentioned, and to meet the need of applicants meet the need that the applicants have identified. In the future, the notice of funding availability will explicitly describe the levels of indirect cost which are acceptable from applications. And now I will turn it over to our finance director, Mr. Paul Smith, to represent the review committee and their recommendations.
Paul, you may be muted.
There I go. Good evening, Mayor and Council. On the recommendation, we have Brighter Bites in the amount of $22,000 to address food insecurities. For Passion and Compassion, $25 to address food insecurities. And Global Health Projects, $26,400 to address food insecurities. And Linda Benn Foundation in the amount of $25,000 to address food insecurities. We do have the agreements attached, and those are the recommendations of the committee.
So just to be clear, the grant amounts, you are requiring 90% to be directly applied and only a 10% overhead. Is that correct in this round?
That's correct.
Okay. And have you had communications with the nonprofits to confirm that they can?
We have had some, but we wanted to move this forward a little bit and then have further conversations to see if they could, if they would agree to the terms.
Okay.
But we didn't want to address them until we had some sort of guidelines from the council.
Okay. Council, any thoughts, any discussion? Sounds like everybody's good with this.
I mean, I have no issue with it. I mean, the amounts we're looking at, as in the report, it's all coming under $100,000. And this is something we've been trying to address all along, so.
Okay, Councilmember Sadiq had a thumbs up, which I assume means that he is in agreement with this approach. So I think we're good. Thank you for the hard work of the the committee that was reviewing the applications, and please continue moving forward in this direction and keep us appraised.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Town Manager, is there anything else that the council needs to do this evening on this topic?
I don't think this evening, Mr. Mayor, but I believe the way we handled the previous ones is the council approved them. Is that correct, Mr. Shelton?
I believe that's correct, yes.
So we would be looking for a motion at the next legislative meeting.
Okay, and before that, then you'll have a chance to talk to the nonprofits and verify that they are still able to.
Correct.
Yeah, I have to say that 10% might be a little bit tight on overheads, but let's see what they say. We'll let them make that decision and get back to us. Okay. Let me find my agenda. It's in the stack of documents here on mine. That's the last item under new business. I neglected to ask under unfinished business whether there were any council action items of unfinished business or for that matter, the items of new business. So are there any such items? Everything went quiet, so that sounds like not. So may I please have a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Oh, seconded.
I'm going to say that the motion was by Councilmember Smith, seconded by Councilmember Foe. Is that correct? This motion is neither debated nor discussed, so I'll head immediately to a roll call vote. Councilmember Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Foe.
Aye.
Councilmember Lingua.
Aye.
Councilmember Siddiq.
Aye.
Councilmember Mejia is absent, as we know. Councilmember Ayers.
Aye.
And I abstain. We are adjourned at, if I can read that last little number, at 10:05 p.m. Thank you all very much. I think we had a good, productive meeting. Have a good evening.
Good evening.
Night, everyone.
Thank you all very much.